Raw is a funny little show, isn't it? I mean, we sit down each and every week and I realise I have no idea what I'm going to get. Or at least that's what I used to think. Now I've realised all I need to do is jump in my DeLorean, go back a week, watch that show, and then 7 days later, for some reason, I get the exact same program. But that's alright, that's okay, because I have this, the finger of power, and we are going to go through the latest episode of Raw, and we're going to give the good bits an up, and we're going to give the bad bits a down. Also on Friday, we will do that in a retro style, and this week, the 4 shows you want put into the poll, well, they're very random. It's Backlash 2004, of course, Mick Foley versus Randy Orton. It's WrestleMania 24, Ric Flair, he's retired, and I was there live, so that would be fun. It's the simulcast between WCW and WWF, where Vince McMahon bought his competition, and it's New Year's Resolution or Revolution 2006, when Edge cashed in the first Money in the Bank. So make sure you head over to the community tab and vote for those right now, but otherwise, let's up those downs for Monday Night Raw. Raw started with another tribute to Pat Patterson, and we had these kind of thrown in throughout the show. And as sad as they all are, I tell you, coming out the other side, if you didn't realise how instrumental and important Pat Patterson was to not only the WWE, but wrestling in general, well, now you know. And it would have been sad anyway, because people dying is sad, but now it's like some kind of super wrestling guru has passed away. It truly sucks, and as ever, thoughts and feelings with his friends and family. And then in direct contrast to that, we had everything going on with Randy Orton, The Fiend, and Alexa Bliss. Although saying that, Alexa Bliss was nowhere to be seen throughout the 3-hour running time of Raw. Now maybe I missed something, maybe somebody said something and it went one in here and one out the other, but that was absolutely bizarre. Orton was here though to tell us he's the evilest man on the planet, and I was like, what a thing to say, what a thing to just throw out there when in the world there are actual murderers and fans of Mojo Rawley. I'm joking, I just like taking shots at Mojo Rawley. He's actually very good, but once again, where the hell did he go? Bray Wyatt then popped up on the big screen and Randy Orton told him to stop playing games, and as it turned out, games was the magic special word of the day, and Bray Wyatt for a little bit turned into a game show host, and he was just pointing and yelling at all of his puppets. They also didn't have the answer, but it's okay because we know who does have the answer, and it's him. And Bray Wyatt was referring to The Fiend, and there was quite a funny bit when Randy Orton just turned his back to this. He was like, I don't want to have to put up with this nonsense. It ended with Orton saying that he wanted to take on the Firefly Funhouse version of Bray later on, because of course at the TLC pay-per-view, he will take on The Fiend, and all of this was fine, and all of this was okay, but it just feels like we've done it before. Like when you take the Bray Wyatt character, it's so creative and it's so different and it's so inventive, but all of his programs are starting to feel just exactly the same as the last one. And Alexa Bliss has been a great addition, but once again, poof, she just wasn't here this evening. So yeah, I sat there watching it going, I'm not into this. I'm trying to plug myself in. It's like when you go abroad and you forget to bring the adapter, you just end up smashing metal into a hole. That's me in this feud, and it's getting it down. We then found out that it's Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler taking on the team of Asuka and Lana for the tag titles at the pay-per-view, and that has to be one of the biggest stretches ever for granting a championship match, and later on we are going to get Asuka versus Shayna Baszler, and I got all excited then. I was like, oh man, that will be a great match, and Nia Jax was trying to big up Shayna Baszler by going, oh, you're going to do it, you're going to do it, and then we're going to murder Lana basically. It's like, poor Lana, man, she's got a tiger on her back, but don't worry, WWE flubs this all up. Well, no, to a point, because we then did have this match, and look, Shayna versus Asuka is always good. Asuka is just ridiculous. Baszler has that whole I'm gonna beat you up for real aura. So when these two are in the ring, they are allowed to create some kind of magic. I mean, they didn't get any time here, but it was still decent. Up. The issue is that WWE has fallen into a pattern, and it's one they need to get out of, double quick time, because even though Shayna and Asuka were kicking each other's ass in the ring, as soon as Lana and Nia Jax started to brawl on the outside, Shayna just walked over and was like, well, what's going on here? It meant that the action in the squared circle just stopped, and also the referee didn't do anything, which is another inconsistency, because sometimes if you brawl on the outside, they'll stop it, and other times they'll be like, I don't care. And here, when Lana, close my eyes, had reversed Nia Jax's move, and Shayna was like, oh, I can't believe it, my friend/partner's in trouble, Asuka snuck up behind her and used the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up, to get the 1, 2, 3. Pull the board down, that is 99. 99 surprise roll-ups, and we probably won't get to 100 because WWE will troll me now, but the joke is on them because we only started in March. We're definitely already in three figures. It also didn't achieve anything. Nobody benefited. It didn't feel like Asuka had defeated Shayna Baszler. I don't care that Lana got one over Nia Jax. I just don't. It didn't make me feel anything. So it was just like going round one of those roundabout things in a playground. It's like this, it's this, it's this. You get off, you throw up because you feel sick. I don't like vomiting. Down. It is also just mad that the women's champion is now lost in the tag team championship feud. Her business with them bullying somebody backstage because they aren't just a group of assholes, and then we got a recap of what happened on WWE main event, and what a trip that was. Anyway, it was building up to the fact that we're about to focus on Ricochet and Dana Brooke, who later on are gonna take on Retribution. Ricochet and Brooke then had a promo where they said that they think Retribution are a bunch of jackasses before they got interrupted by Riddle. And Riddle wanted to give them a donut, and because he's a bro and he had donuts, he let us know these are bro nuts. I said it last week, and I said the week before that, this character has a very definite ceiling, and if you're a big fan of Matt Riddle, you may not like it, but there's just something about the way he portrays it, it makes me chuckle. And I'm not saying that it's good, but hey, I have fun, so who cares? Mustafa Ali then reacted to all of this and said that Dana Brooke and Ricochet tonight will meet their end. We don't see this much, bring it down, it's the kill 'em counter, and we are up to number 8. Now that's kind of a crap number, but really when you talk about death threats in pro wrestling, it should be 0. They are going to meet their end like he was just going to get a gun out and shoot him in the head. And then after all of that and this pretense that it may be something important, Dana Brooke and Ricochet just won in 2 minutes. So please put your hands together, bow your heads, and join me. Because it is time to say goodbye to Retribution, who finally have met their match. I mean, they've done absolutely nothing, and they lost once again, which is why I have donned my mask within the realms of Retribution. I am known as Tiger Face, and I shall now remove it, which will signal the end, once again, for the group known as Retribution. And if you're surprised that it's me, I worry about you. Didn't we do that already? A funeral for Retribution? Maybe, but I think it sums up the point. And yeah, Dana Brooke just walked over to Mia Yim, gave her some kind of driver, and pinned her, and honestly, I have cooked eggs that took more effort than this. Worse still, afterwards, Ali yelled at both these guys too, to once again tease that maybe the group is about to break up. And if they do, we just have to admit it now. I like everybody in this. I think they're super duper talented, but their booking is just ridiculous. They turned up, they flicked the lights on and off for a little bit, and then they lost over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, who is this for? Genuine question, answer it in the comments. It hasn't helped Ali, hasn't helped Slapnuts, hasn't helped Maceface, whatever the hell they're called. It's like the roundabout again. They just keep going round in circles. They are simply not a threat. And don't get mad at me either. I gave them time. I was well on the Retribution train at one point, but it never arrived at the station. Down. Keith Lee also still really cares about the fact that Sheamus may be about to turn on Drew McIntyre. I understand that he's a caring individual, but I have 2 problems with this. 1, I just prefer if Keith Lee was in a proper feud, but 2, Drew McIntyre is the most dominant and in-control babyface ever. Even if his mate does turn on him, Drew would probably be like, hey, you tried to touch me, you're a moron, and then he'd just kick him in the face. But yeah, more importantly, can we please put Keith Lee in a proper feud? We also then found out that Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch have had their first child. I thought that was lovely news. It made me feel all warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum, so a massive congratulations to them. It was then Miz TV, and I thought to myself, is anybody else a little bit bored of Miz TV? Because I really am. Their guests were AJ Styles and Omos, who were going to talk about the fact that it is going to be a TLC match between AJ Styles and Drew McIntyre at the TLC pay-per-view, and I thought that was a massive shame. AJ Styles and Drew McIntyre don't need a TLC match, they just need to have a one-on-one contest and they'll still smash it and it will still be fun, but once more. It's like this, you just pull it out your pocket and go, oh, we should have a TLC match, because that's just what we want to do. And you eat the paper. Morrison and Miz then said that match isn't going to happen because before we get there, they're going to beat up Drew McIntyre and cash in their money in the bank. And they then proceeded to do these impressions of Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. And I sat there and thought to myself, if I stab myself in my eye, maybe I don't have to watch this anymore. it also went on forever. The long story short was that Sheamus came out and he was mad, and then Drew McIntyre joined him and he thought it was hilarious, and he also brought up the point that it's really good Miz and Morrison keep coming back for more. You should never mention that. It just goes to show that every week we're doing copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. McIntyre then said something about Miz's balls and the fact they belong to his wife Maryse, but they're also in John Morrison's pocket because he's a bitch. Then after AJ Styles wound everybody up, Drew McIntyre and Sheamus beat the crap out of Miz and John Morrison. I really do like AJ Styles. Much like the opening, it kind of felt like we'd already done this before, and we're just biding our time, waiting for a couple of weeks when we do have a pay-per-view. Down. What did I tell you last week too? I mean, it didn't take a genius to figure it out, but because we'd already had one singles match confrontation between the Hurt Business and the New Day, now we had to do the other way around, so it was Kofi Kingston versus Shelton Benjamin. Although I did enjoy it. It didn't go very long, which was kind of a shame, but Kofi did win after the Trouble in Paradise, but this was all kind of a ruse, because Cedric Alexander was so livid that this had happened, he jumped in the ring, got the microphone and said, "Listen, Kof, you ain't going anywhere. I want to have a match with you right now to prove I am the best wrestler on the entire planet." Now the twist here was that Kingston had hurt his knee in that previous match, and he should have said no, but because he's a fighting warrior, he said yes. And can you believe that he lost? But I don't really care about that, because what it does mean is that for the second consecutive week, Cedric Alexander got a pretty decent win. And of course, once again, he celebrated like he just won the lottery, although thankfully this time he did it around the other members of the Hurt Business. And I've officially decided that this is what the Hurt Business wagon should be for. Because MVP's like a veteran, he's a hero, he'll be fine no matter what you do. Shelton Benjamin, unfortunately, I was on the other side of his career. I don't think WWE's going to do much with him. Bobby Lashley is the most protected man in the world, so he's fine, but Cedric needs something, and the Hurt Business should be it. Now, I don't think this is going to happen, but I'm going to keep everything crossed that it does. Just try and make him a proper star. If it works, awesome. If it doesn't work, well, what did we lose? Nothing. I'm a little bit worried that we are just going to do Hurt Business and New Day until the end of time, but still, there's a new spark to this, and I'm a little bit intrigued. There's then this handicap match between AJ Styles, The Miz and Morrison taking on Drew McIntyre and Sheamus, and my only slight concern is that I'm now more invested in what WWE may do with McIntyre and Sheamus than the upcoming match between AJ Styles and Drew. That doesn't make any sense, but it's getting it up. Because yeah, halfway through, Sheamus accidentally punched Drew right in the face because he was gonna hit The Miz, but The Miz got out the way. Drew was like, all right, look, cool, calm down, get your head in the game. I like the way he handled it. But unfortunately, this was about to get a lot worse. Because after these two had absolutely murdered Miz and Morrison, I mean, honestly, it was like a mugging. Sheamus was just throwing out bro kicks because he can't control his temper. And when he went to kick John Morrison also moved, and he smashed Drew McIntyre right in the face. It caused such a fracas that AJ was able to jump in, and he'd basically been staying out the whole match with the phenomenal forearm, and he pinned Sheamus for the 1-2-3. And he also did this cool high five thing with Omos afterwards, where he jumps and slaps his hand. I really like these two, and they're meant to be bad guys. And sure, this is the oldest booking in the books, but if it works, it works. And afterwards, Drew McIntyre stared at Sheamus like, "You absolute son of a gun, you have ruined everything." What I kind of want to have, I want there to be a swerve, basically. I want there to be a swerve here. We all think that they're going to have a big falling out at one point, and Sheamus is going to go after the WWE title. I would rather they were best friends forever, and they hug all the time and write nice letters to each other. Wouldn't that just be a lovely little unexpected turn? It was then time for our weekly let's try and make Lana a massive babyface for the week. And do you know what we did? She was having a meltdown in front of Asuka because she had just learned she had to take on Nia Jax. Just by saying, "Believe in yourself," Lana then started to believe in herself until she turned around and bumped into Nia and once again just melted down. Please, in the comments, again, tell me how this is meant to work. Everybody here is fine, but they're given such ridiculous material. I then almost died. I genuinely almost died because Drew confronted Sheamus in the backstage area and said to him, "You know what we need to do now?" And the two started to have a massive fight. And I was like, are you kidding? This is how we're gonna pull the trigger? One of the worst things I'd ever seen. Thankfully though, it then turned into one of the best things I've ever seen. Because as it turned out, they were just acting like idiotic brothers. Like as soon as it was done, they fist bumped and shook hands and went off to have a drink. This is just how they handle their differences. I mean, poor Pat Buck, he got thrown through a table. But yeah, once again, this really made me go, well, that was a little bit different. So once again, go back to my earlier idea, somebody go get a pen. Riddle then approached Jeff Hardy and said, even though he knows he has a big match against Bobby Lashley in a second, wouldn't it be great if they could be a tag team and they could call themselves the Hardy Bros? Jeff Hardy looked at him like he was a moron, So Riddle ate one of his donuts. Oh boy. Bobby Lashley was then taking on Jeff Hardy, and I have no idea why, because stuff just happens, but it did an alright job. I mean, it was mostly a vehicle for Riddle, who I think is about to enter the United States title scene, because after MVP got on the apron to distract Jeff Hardy, which happens all the time on Raw, Riddle ran down, pulled him off, and was like, no man, I remember what you did last week, so now I'm standing my ground. It also meant that Bobby Lashley got right in Riddle's face, and I honestly thought at one point Riddle was just going to produce one of these donuts and stick it right in Bobby Lashley's mouth. He didn't. This was alright though. Jeff Hardy had a pretty damn good comeback after getting beaten up for a while, but unfortunately he landed in the Hurt Lock eventually, and even though he tried his best, he had to tap out, he had to submit, because that actually is the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment. Nobody gets out of the Hurt Lock. Obviously Lashley wouldn't release this, so Riddle was getting in there, but Bobby Lashley is so strong, he just hurled him into Jeff Hardy and the two went down. And yeah, maybe we do a tag team match next week. Eventually it will build to Riddle versus Lashley, probably at TLC. Riddle, I suppose, should actually win as well. Although that may never happen because, again, no one's even allowed to breathe on Bobby Lashley. The man just destroys and decimates all the damn time. MVP actually did eat one of these donuts when he was leaving, so maybe that can be why this feud escalates. You don't eat Riddle's sugary treats. Orton was then in his locker room, and he heard a knock on the door. He answered the door, but nobody was there. He then walked to the other side of his locker room, and when he turned around, Ramblin' Rabbit was looking at him. So they stared at each other, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually watching Randy Orton stare at a puppet. This wasn't the best Raw ever. It also didn't mean anything because we then just went straight into the Randy Orton versus Firefly Funhouse version of Bray Wyatt. And this was kind of a crazy situation too, because this version of Bray beforehand has only been fighting people like The Miz, and now he's going against the 14, 15, 16, 922-time world champion, Randy Orton. It was truly baffling. There was a nice bit where Wyatt stole Tom Phillips' headset and then threw the show to commercial, because he knows the formatting of Raw, and kind of fascinatingly, we were pumping in like, let's go Bray, Bray, you're the best chance here, because WWE genuinely thinks that Bray Wyatt is the babyface. I like the character, but I certainly don't feel that way. Later on, Orton was able to get out of the Sister Abigail because he poked Bray Wyatt right in the eye, and ironically, I'm keeping my own eye on that because we are starting to do that a lot, and I tell you who this didn't appease, the Fiend, because the lights started to flick on and off. Randy gave so little of a shib he hit the RKO anyway, and even though he had Bray Wyatt pinned to the 1, 2, 3, as soon as the ref got to 2, the lights went out completely. When they came back on though, Bray Wyatt had transformed into the Fiend, and because Randy Orton was so unprepared for this, and the referee just stopped doing his job, he took his fingers, he jabbed him into Orton's throat, and he applied the mandible claw, and then Raw just went off air. So there was no finish, there was no announcement. The only thing I can come up with is, oh, we decided there would be no end to this match because the Fiend has magical powers. And look, this was okay. It was quite the creative finish. And as always, people online were going, well, you would never be able to do this if fans were in the arena. Even though we're living in a time where there are no fans in the arena. It's the same kind of crazy people that go, this game would be no good if Batman wasn't in it. Batman is flipping in it. But the issue, once again, comes down to the feud. Even though this bit was a little bit different and we did think outside the box, I just feel like I've seen it all before. So it's just not clicking for me, which means I am going to be a fence sitter, getting right in my ass, because again, quite a nice creative finish, getting an up, but overall, it was such a flat ending to Raw, and that's getting it down. Which brings us to the end of this week's Ups and Downs, and I have to say it, I don't like being a negative Nancy, but it wasn't the most exciting Raw I've ever seen in my life. Like, does it make me want to watch TLC any more than I was going to watch TLC before I sat through this? No, it did not, and 2 weeks out, we really should be lighting the flames. So it's one of those occasions, overall, just getting it down. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of Raw. Also, go vote for Retro Ups and Downs in the community feed. Then like the video, share the video, and smash that subscribe button. It's right there. Then head over to WhatCulture.com. We have a website. Take a little look. We have a Twitter at WhatCulture WWE, and you can watch more videos on this YouTube channel. You're already here. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. Thank you for joining me as always. And it's one of those weeks when we got loads of ups and downs to do because we had NXT and then there's just so much information to get into. And I will see you for every single one.